True LinkedIn style. What's not on your LinkedIn profile?
I have a habit of asking quite a lot of questions. I tend to be curious by nature. It might be that's probably not there.
One leadership trait that is overrated.
The leader should have all answers is overrated. It's important for leaders to know how to get the right answer.
One word to describe the future of GCCs in India.
Talent.
What makes it a unique moment for him or her to join Charles Schwab India?
So you get the thrill of working in a startup with the safety of a paycheck.
In my conversations with GCC leaders, you've suddenly asked to scale from 0 to 1,000 and a lot more. How's the scorecard changed?
Amount of time that we have to become productive is getting crunched.
How are you creating an environment where people feel they're building meaningful careers?
A role is how you probably enter Schwab, but a career is why you will stay at Schwab.
Hello everyone and welcome to the launch episode of GCC Insider. Today, I have a very special guest with me. His name is Pradeep Menon, Managing Director and Country Head at Charles Schwab, India. So it's a pleasure to have you here with us, Pradeep. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. Thank you for taking time out to talk to me and having me over.
Yeah, absolutely. It's our pleasure, Pradeep, to have you with us. True LinkedIn style, whenever we do an introduction, we ask people what's not on their LinkedIn profile. So that's a question I pose for you as well. What's not on your LinkedIn profile?
Like in today's world, I think pretty much everything is out there. But if I were to pick one thing, I have a habit of asking quite a lot of questions. I tend to be curious by nature. It might be that's probably not there.
Wow, that's a great skill to have. So being curious. Thank you, Pradeep. So today, ladies and gentlemen, Charles Schwab has built its reputation on trust and on being customer focused. And that's exactly the lens at which India GCC story needs to be read today. And we at LinkedIn, with our economic graph of having 1.3 billion members on our platform, 69 million companies, and over 41,000 unique skills, we see India emerging as a key destination and bright spot for talent growth and opportunity. So rather than talking about GCC's trends today, I'd like us to focus on leadership lessons through this journey. So let's start this off with you, Pradeep, right? And I want to know you a little bit better. As a leader, you worked in so many GCCs over the past few years. Usually, leadership lessons, sometimes people do have something in mind in terms of, oh, I'm this kind of a leader. But the way I see it, it's leadership lessons come through experiences, through learnings, through failures, etc. So if you had to look back at your career, what leadership lesson did you take the longest to learn? And what was those defining experiences that shaped the leader you are today?
Thank you for that. I think if I were to think back in time, as you can imagine, it's generally not one instance that one becomes a leader. It tends to be a journey over many years. When you're given your first assignment as a leader, you start learning from it. And then the complexities of the leadership task at hand increases, the sizes of the team increases, the impact that you're able to make increases, right? So as you go through that journey, you have different experiences. I think if I look back at my career, very early on, you realize the importance of ensuring that you're a caring leader, because you'll learn certain things the hard way. Saying if you're not caring enough, then you can't really take care of, and you're not seen as someone who your team can look up to when in times of need. It's not going to be easy for you to survive as a leader. So that's kind of key. The other thing that you also learn is the art of balancing perspectives. Because many a times as leaders, you're faced with different situations. You need to bring in different skills. So having a repertoire of skills that you build over a period of time in terms of your ability to handle people, your ability to handle very stressful situations that can come at you, all these things eventually end up making you a leader that you are.
Yeah, I love the fact that you started by saying taking care of people. I think that word care is in today's world somewhere lost. Right. And I think a lot of people probably, as much as they say care, probably it's not in their top, probably mantra or leadership mantra. It comes probably down the pecking order. So great to know that, for you, the essence starts with taking care of people.
Oh, yes.
So thank you for sharing. Really helpful. I've also noticed another thing, right? Success, the definition of success differs from people to people.
Yeah.
You've seen success over your career, right? And that's why you are at the place where you are today. And of course, people with those successes leave certain legacies, etc. If I had to ask you, what is your definition of success, and how have you seen that evolve over the last few years?
Yeah, I mean, you made a very valid point. Success does change too. I mean, the definition of success does change. I do admit that probably, again, in the early years of a leadership journey, success would probably be more focused on ensuring that there are certain metrics that we meet, there are certain, thresholds within which we operate, and all of that. But eventually, you do realize that success is about the end outcome that you're responsible for. So in today's world, whether you're a GCC or any firm that you're working in, as far as you're able to bring that smile to your customer's face, the eventual outcome that you drive makes him or her smile. Or that outcome could also be equally on the employee side. If you're running an organization, so ensuring that your employees are, like, going back to the caring point, right? That they're taken care of. That whatever you do results in that making them happy, ensuring that they are satisfied with the outcomes that they get, that is success. And somewhere between the metrics focus to getting that eventual outcome of a happy customer, I think there are all different kinds of success metrics that you arrive at. But I think eventually the whole makes a bigger impact on an organization's impact.
Very nicely put in terms of your definition, the way you look at success. It's just not your people, but it's also your customers, right? At the end of the day, yeah, businesses are there to solve a problem for their customers. And
the reason I said that again is also because through customers' eyes is a guiding philosophy that we have. So I think bringing that up front and ensuring that everything revolves around that is kind of key to the culture that we have.
yeah, and true, right? Because sometimes the customers, when we look at, people say customer success as a very often overused word, or people use it a lot. I think sometimes customer success has to be defined in the lens of the customer, not in the lens of the vendor or the partner, right? So yeah, thanks for kind of sharing this as well. Let's come to the GCC landscape here in India. Pretty much, the most talked about, the buzzword in the last 18 to 24 months in corporate India. Every second day you open the newspaper, you see a new GCC coming into India, in all shapes and forms, the larger ones, the enterprise ones, the mid-market ones as well. And of course, we've seen it evolve as well. Gone are the days where they were kind of, used as execution hubs or, cost-saving hubs, but today they actually drive business priorities, innovation, and of course, drive impact for the organization. So the question I have for you is, as Charles Schwab grows in India, and obviously you've been given that mandate to grow it in India, what do you believe are the most most critical in establishing the role of the GCC as a strategic partner for the global enterprise or for your HQ?
That's a great point that you make, Santosh. You're right. The GCC ecosystem in India, or for that matter, even around the world, started roughly about a couple of decades ago. In fact, 2 to 3 decades ago. And the initial attempts were relatively more tentative, where it was focused around a certain value cost point that you were driving towards, or a certain amount of, kind of having business continuity, ensuring that, you have another set of talent which is looking at the same outcomes that the parent company is driving. The imperative today has changed. In 2026, when you're going to enter with setting up a GCC, I think as a new age GCC, you typically would be the ramp up time that you'd have to get closer to the end outcomes is a lot shorter. You got to deliver faster. The advantage that you also get is that you're tapping into an ecosystem where the talent has been honed in these areas already, right? So a lot of the talent has been well exposed and they're experienced. You have access. They've been exposed to a lot of these problems that other organizations are facing with already over the last couple of decades. So I think you're able to get in that. So the strategic focus that Charles Schwab has when it's set up, it's a very deliberate attempt at doing so. There's a lot of thought that's gone into ensuring what is it that the GCC is going to stand for. So we're very clear that everything that we do here supports the US-based customers of Charles Schwab, right? And we'll have talent that actually helps drive those, helps support the customer outcomes of our teams in the US and collaborates with the teams there, ensures that the financial goals that our customers get by the teams that are supported by the teams that support them in the US, that we play tango with them, and that we all work to a plan on that. So that's the key focus that we have.
Got it. in fact, just want to kind of double click in terms of you mentioning that, a lot of the work you're doing it for your customers there. Is there like one or two specific mandates you're working on at this point of time in terms of, helping your customers here in India?
Yeah, sure. Our customers are all based in the US. Charles Schwab does not have an operation in India from a business perspective. Now, uh, the kind of outcomes that we're initially working on are on technology. So I think we have decided very deliberately that technology services is where the initial foray of the GCC for Schwab in India is going to be. So we're looking at multiple areas within technology where those things are going to play out. I think eventually over a period of time, we probably will set ourselves up as a full enterprise support function. So you'll have other enterprise functions being worked out of the GCC also. But given that it's the initial months, our focus is a lot more on the technology part of the support ecosystem.
Thanks for sharing that. I think it starts with technology and probably the rest of the other function. Uh, what we read, of course, is that, and of course, from my understanding and having spoken to a lot of GCC leaders like you over the few years, the reason why GCCs are being set up in India is, I think, one reason stands out. It's talent. It's the people, the quality of talent you have here in India, and the variety, right, of talent. And at the end of the day, talent is a competitive advantage, right? If you have the right people on seat, it obviously defines the trajectory of how the company grows. So the question I have for you is, now that you're scaling up your operations in Charles Schwab over the next couple of years or so, how are you creating as a business leader, as the head of and the managing director and country head in India? How are you creating an environment where people feel they're building meaningful careers in your organization?
Very good question. So I think that's something that we have spent a lot of we have actively spent time thinking through. And a few things stand out. I think while Schwab in India is a separate legal entity in its own right, it's it's going to be culturally very similar to Schwab in the US. So I know that when GCC started, to the earlier question that you were asking, Santosh, a couple of decades ago, culture wasn't as focused upon on day one, in as much as it was supposed to be something that would happen by year 5 and year 10. But I think in 2026, going back to the age where we are operating in right now, that's no longer true. So an organization like Schwab, some of the others who would enter the market at the same time, would focus on ensuring that cultural assimilation between the parent org and the GCC is going to be as congruent as you can get from day one. That's key. Which also means that the understanding of the brand, the value proposition, the employee value proposition that we provide, the fact that, when we talk about the way things get done, the way we think and do things is all going to be as similar, if not 100% aligned to the way things get done stateside for Schwab. So I think that's one of the things that we are very clear, because with that, what we get is the talent we bring in will end up focusing on delivering the same outcomes that some of their colleagues, like they'll end up collaborating with them, of course, but they probably work on similar outcomes as what their colleagues in states would do, which means that from a sheer career growth perspective, they have access to the same growth potential as somebody else would have, right? We're also trying, as you can imagine, given the fact that we're setting up in 2026, we also get to learn from some of these things of how other GCCs would have played out over time, like the way the learning curves that they've gone through. So we are ensuring that we will set ourselves as a great employer eventually, as like be a premium employer for amongst the GCC industry, and that every employee who works with us is in it for a career and not so much for a role. I mean, a role is how you probably enter Schwab, but a career is why you will stay at Schwab, and that's something that we're very clear about.
Those are great points, and I like the fact that you talk about in terms of equity as well. That people who work in Charles Schwab India have the same opportunity and equal opportunities to your counterparts in the headquarters, and right. So that those are great signs for anybody joining your organization. That hey, you do well in your current job, nailed it, and obviously opportunities are there just like anybody else. So thanks for sharing this as well. In my conversations with like I said, with GCC leaders, there's a lot of pressure, I'm sure, on you guys, right? You've suddenly asked to scale from 0 to 1,000 and a lot more, depending on the size. And of course, you've got to kind of deliver outcomes as you. I think that's the word you mentioned as well. So the question I have for you is, how's the scorecard changed for you as well, and what outcomes are most critical for you today uh, in terms of driving value for your enterprise globally?
Got it. So, thank you. That's again a great question. I think most of us who are GCC leaders, and we have these conversations, and I think it's pretty similar even amongst other new GCCs which get set up. Some parts of the scorecard have remained the same, which is there are always certain numbers that you need to work with when it comes to finance, when it comes to talent. Those numbers, again, whether you're a new GCC or an established GCC, you still have to go to it. But what's changing is, and this is very evident across the industry, is the amount of time that we have to become productive, to become integrated into the ecosystem, is getting crunched, right? So that is the change. So which means you see a change in the scorecard which comes in and says that you're not given, if you were given X amount of time to get to a certain maturity, today you get much lesser time to go to it. So that's just the reality of the way things get set up. The benefit, though, that works in this thing is you're also tapping into an ecosystem which is fairly well tenured. So unlike 20 years ago, let's say 2006, if you're getting set up in 2006, you'd probably have to experiment with talent because that you have to build that talent. But today, you can tap into an ecosystem where that talent is available. So to some extent, it's a pretty balanced perspective, and that's how I'm seeing the change in the scorecards for GCCs.
That's right. And do you see this evolving? The scorecards changing like every 1 year to 18 months, or do you think it's going to be sort of consistent?
So you're right. I think GCCs too will go through, there are maturity cycles that they have, right? One is the industry's maturity cycle, and then individual GCCs also would, once you get set up, the first couple of years, you're really settling in, you're finding your feet, you're understanding the dynamics, adjusting to the norms, to the earlier question, and ensuring that the culture is as similar to the parent as you can. And then there is a phase of consolidation some years down the line, and then eventually there is a BAU mode which would happen some more years down the line. And the scorecards would change in each of those phases, right, to reflect the reality or the maturity cycle that the GCC is in right now. So I would expect that to play out for Schwab eventually. It would be no different from that. And probably that's the way the rest of the industry too would adapt to it.
No, thanks for sharing this as well. I think really helpful for our viewers who are kind of seeing this in terms of how it's evolving, the scorecards evolving for GCCs depending on which stage of the life cycle they are in right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to bring you back to, I think, one thing which you mentioned is culture. I don't know if you saw some of the questions which I had kind of had, but you kind of, felt like, because your answer earlier was around culture, the fact that, you're kind of creating a culture in Charles Schwab India, which is kind of similar to the one which you have in your
Right.
parent organization. And my personal belief is culture changes over time, right? It's about how you demonstrate the right behaviors, your actions. It's just not putting some things on the board, right? So the question I have, Pradeep, for you is, Charles Schwab has built its reputation on being customer centric, being, in terms of integrity, employee centric. You mentioned this as well. How do you translate some of these values into a great experience for your employees?
There are broadly, again, like there's a lot of thought that's gone into this, right? And we've decided that this is something that we should take head on. So there are broadly 4 core values that we look at. One is trust, starting with trust, ensuring that Schwab has an inherent value that you should always earn the trust of your customer by being as transparent as you can. So there's a whole lot of thinking where even when the way the GCC is being set up, that tenet is underscores, that value tenet underscores everything. And then there is innovation to ensure that you find innovative ways to serve your customer so that they get the best of what's out there in a manner that only Schwab can provide given its scale, size, and so on. So again, that's another tenet that we would believe in here. The third thing is teamwork. So we are ensuring that the initial folks that we come in, it's not about individuals, but it's about teams that get formed. Because when teams absorb culture, there is just the synergy that comes with it. It's a force multiplier. You can do so much more. So teamwork and the way those teams are going to eventually play out here is kind of core. And then the fourth tenet is around stewardship, because the Schwab brand is a well-respected. It's not. We do admit that Schwab does not have operations in India. So the Schwab brand is not as much of a household name in India as it is stateside. But the fact that we do as much stewardship towards the brand, its reputation as an employer in India, as we would with the folks back, as we would do with our brand back in the US. So those are some of the values that we concentrate on.
Got it. Yeah. No, thanks for sharing. And just like on this, now that you're scaling up in India, and you spoke about some of the values, some of the tenets which you spoke about as well. How are you bringing it to life in India? Like, is there, one or two examples you can share?
I mean, it as of now, it manifests itself in every element of whatever we're doing, whether it be our offices, whether it be our communication, whether it be even if it boils down to the employee, the new joinee kits that we're giving out. Everywhere, we are ensuring that some of these tenets, whether it's the onboarding programs that we have, we are very actively talking about these things, right down from the interview process where we actually speak about some of these things. We ensure that we're also bringing in people who we feel will align well into these values that we'd be interested in, right? Interested in building out in India. So that's how it's manifesting on a day-to-day basis. We're seeing that playing out here in India.
Thanks for sharing these examples. Pradeep, let's move to the next topic in terms of, which is, I think, everyone's talking about, which is the buzzword today, AI, right? I could see the smile on your face. I guess you knew where it's coming. And today, like I said, it's impossible to have a conversation with any leader without talking about AI. I think leaders want to know more. It's over the last 18 months, people were piloting, etc. Now today, it's more about scaling in organizations, bringing about adoption across all functions, all teams. There, we've at LinkedIn also we were seeing that skills are evolving faster than ever before, right? As they say, your jobs are changing on you, even though you're not changing your jobs, right? And some of the labor market data which we have shows that across close to 31 countries, right, 82% of leaders believe this is going to be the pivotal year in terms of how they're going to be using AI in the way they work. So the question I have for you is, we all know that AI is shaping the way we work. What do you believe? What will become important for leaders in the world of work?
So I think, and we're well aware of this. So thank you for bringing that up. I think we have an advantage of being set up in 2026 because we are able to look at the ecosystem around us, the way it's changing, and ensure that we have learnings from that incorporated to the way when we are getting set up. So we are ensuring we remain close to this now. Because Schwab in India is a new footprint, we haven't yet got to a point where we have about, to be fair, as of today, we're about 47 to 48 employees. We intend to multiply quite a few times by the end of the year. But in those 48 odd employees, these conversations are already active. Even when we were designing for the footprint of Schwab in India, I think there are certain implications of the changing world around us that we have built into the plan in terms of productivity and so on. One of the things that Schwab is very clear about is AI is always going to help humans. That's just the nature of the way we have spoken about it in the past. And I think that's something that is also going to play out at the GCC in India, where we see, the advancements in AI eventually helping us deliver our customer goals better, faster, in a more accurate manner, right? And ensuring that the end outcome for our customer is we have more fabulous outcomes for our customers. So that's the way we see this playing out. It's already part of some of the design fabric that we have for the GCC, and we'll see how this goes.
Sure. Yeah, thanks. I think that's a good point you make. And I think most leaders are I speak to have the similar sentiment, which is AI is, when you start using AI, it kind of helps deliver better outcomes, better customer value. And it's kind of an enabler for you to do your job better, right? So in a way, kind of enhances productivities and efficiencies as well. Today, when I look at, maybe segue to the next question is today, young professionals, a lot of them coming into the market. We have these young, especially India, right? With very young population as a country. All of them are today, technology savvy. They understand, that AI is the future. We're seeing that play out, on LinkedIn as well, in terms of the number of people kind of using LinkedIn learning courses have nearly gone up 3x over the last 24 months and that too using some of these AI skills. So, the question I have is looking ahead, what do you think are the skills and experiences should young professionals, invest to thrive in the age of AI? And as they prepare themselves to say join organizations or join GCCs just like you.
Yeah, I think, and this is true for, like you said, talent which is entering the workforce in as much as talent which is also tenured in the workforce, right? I think, including leaders. I think one, always keep an eye on the world that's changing around us. Uh, be as close to it as you can. Ensure that uh, you see the end outcomes that this technology is going to enable and embrace it with both hands, right? Ensure that, and that's something that we have as a culture. We talk to everyone. The talent that's coming on board actually believes in the same thing. I think those are the skills that everyone needs to have. Now, of course, if you're in the technical world, then you also need to have a much deeper grasp of the tools where some of these advancements are happening and how it can actually enable you to work more productively and so on. So those are some of the things that I would see play out.
Yeah. Thanks. And anything you're doing in your organization to kind of, upskill your employees or your people? I know you said you have a small team at this point in time, but anything you're doing to upskill them in terms of some of the new
A lot of what we're doing right now is ensuring that the technology uh, training, and that's true for any GCC, not specific to Schwab alone, is ensuring that the technology footprint that we build here mirrors that of the parent organization to the extent that we can. Because end of the day, you're supporting the same customer outcome. The only benefit that you have is because you're setting up a GCC from scratch, you're able to make some of these design changes a little faster. And I think that benefit is something that new GCCs are able to bring in.
No, that's a good point you made. Doing things faster, because I think sometimes some of the larger organizations to move things become so much more difficult compared to smaller organizations. And having, of course, spoken to you, I think you're somebody who's always at the forefront of bringing constant change. If you think it's going to drive kind of constant impact to your employees as well as your customers. So yeah, thank you for sharing this. Let's bring the conversation back to India and to, of course, Charles Schwab here in India. You just mentioned, as we were having a conversation, you're close to around 50 odd employees here in India. When you and me met, I think 3 4 months back, you were, I think, 3 people. So three has become close to 50. So it's been a good kind of journey over the last few months. For a young professional, the question, if for a young professional who wants to start off his career in a GCC, right? What makes it a unique moment for him or her to join Charles Schwab India?
That's a good question. Thank you for asking that. I was hoping you'd bring it up. Uh, I think it's a great time to join Charles Schwab in India. One, there are two things which are really going in its favor. One, we are setting up in 2026. I've said this a couple of times during our conversation today. What that allows us is to ensure that we don't make the mistakes that some others would have made in the past. Because you've just had the luxury of building things up from scratch in a year when the talent's a lot more tenured, right? So one clear advantage of joining us is that you enter a new age GCC where things get set up in a certain way, which is very outcome focused. And it's not an afterthought. It's the forethought that it's very customer outcome focused from day one. The other thing is it's a startup. So you get the, how do I put it, the thrill of working in a startup with the safety of a paycheck. I mean, why not?
That's a nice way of putting it.
Yeah, I admit it's a borrowed line, but it's something, if I came from one of my employees who told me that we were having this conversation, I was asking him some of these things. And you know what, might be that makes sense. So I think all those things apart, I think you get to join a global firm, a firm which has good global tenets, is well respected in the field that it works in. You get to be amongst the first set of people who are going to define history for that firm in India, in its GCCs. I mean, if I were at that stage of my career, I'd probably grab it with both hands.
Thanks, Pradeep. I think you're just short of kind of telling people, if you've got the right skills and talents, please come and join Charles Schwab. But yeah, having said that, all I can say is, Charles Schwab India is hiring. If you have the right skills, yeah, you can please reach out to their team as well. So thank you, Pradeep. I think it was a great conversation. You are very candid in terms of what's happening in your organization, what's happening globally. The fact that culture is so important to you as you build and scale up this organization here. You spoke about the fact that how AI is changing the way we all work, and yeah, at the end of the day, it has to derive deliver outcomes, right, for our customers, for our members, for our employees, etc. So thank you for that. I know we've had kind of bit of serious conversation around GCC's talent, AI, culture, etc. Let's have, let me do a quick rapid fire for you. Don't worry, it's not going to be a controversial one where you'll get a ping from your headquarters, right? It's going to be pretty simple. You've just got to answer it in one word which comes to your mind, right?
One word.
One word, yeah. One word to describe the future of GCCs in India.
Talent.
Interesting. Nice. I would have said the same. One leadership trait that is overrated and one leadership trait that is underrated.
Overrated, the need that the leader should have all answers is overrated. I think it cannot be explained in a word, so let me just take it. I do think that it's not important for all leaders to have all answers. It's important for leaders to know how to get the right answer. I think knowing that is more important. I think that's a bigger skill to have. I think a very underrated skill is active listening. I think all leaders have to actively listen. I think it's a very important skill to have.
That's a good point you make. Yeah, I think that's a skill which a lot of leaders and managers probably don't have, right? But they tend to have answers to everything. But you, as you rightly said, you don't need to have answers. You have people around you who are subject matter experts who should be having answers to some of these. So thanks for bringing. Your biggest bet for India's role in global organizations over the next decade or so?
One word, right? I'd probably say optimize. The reason I didn't say transformation is because there will definitely be transformation and India will be a catalyst in it. But I think optimizing the whole processes that you have as an enterprise, I think a GCC ecosystem, whether it be in India or other countries where GCCs are set up, I think it's going to be very important.
Couple of more questions. One habit which you think has made you a better leader?
Okay, that's a tough one. So two habits, I'd probably say. One, being balanced in perspective, ensuring that, that you, like I said, listening and, hearing out both sides before you come in. And I think the second is something that I've realized the value more over the last decade is practicing gratitude. I think it takes a whole village to make enterprises successful. So ensuring that everyone is you're genuinely grateful to the ecosystem that makes it happen and ensure that you call out people who do it. I think that's a very important thing.
It's good to praise people kind of publicly as well, right? If they're doing a good job. So thank you. And finally, one AI tool which you're using right now?
Copilot.
Thank you. So Pradeep, this has been an absolutely fantastic conversation for me personally. Having met you earlier as well, and today has been a great discussion. I love the fact that how you've brought everything to life, right? From trust, building culture, the values in your organization, how you're looking at talent, how you think AI is going to define the way we all work in the near future. What is your perspective of GCCs, not only in India and globally, and what's the optimism you have for GCCs in India? It's just been so great, right? And thank you for such a great conversation. I want one last question for our audience, and I know there'll be a lot of professionals who'd be watching this. If you could give one piece of advice to a young person, right, who is stepping into any leadership role or a leadership role at this point of time, what would that be?
Be a caring leader. Is what I'd say.
Good. Yeah. I think having spoken to you, I think empathy and compassion come very closely at the fact that you talk about care so much. So I think that's something which a lot of leaders personally I feel do not have. And like I said, I wouldn't say they do not have, but probably it's not right up in their pecking order as well. So thank you for this wonderful conversation, Pradeep. It's been a pleasure to have you at the GCC Insider, our first ever episode of the GCC Insider. We enjoyed this conversation. Hope to stay connected and have more such discussions with GCC leaders in the near future. With that, until next time, thank you and happy listening.
Thank you.